Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tony here with Italian Dual Citizenship Assistance. And in today's video, we have a major update on the legal challenges to the new Italian citizenship law. Until now, everyone's been watching the Turin case, the first judicial challenge that was expected to bring the new law before Italy's constitutional court. But now we have what I think can best be described as a double twist on the situation. Now, the first twist is that the Italian government's lawyers have made a filing that could block the Constitutional Court from ruling on that Turin case altogether. And now it appears that the Italian Supreme Court is going to be examining the very same issue that we were expecting from the Constitutional Court, and actually maybe possibly even doing so sooner. So let's go through what's happening and why this could be one of the most important legal developments that we've seen since the Tajani decree became law. And for a little bit of background on this, earlier this year, Italy passed Decree Law 36, also known as the Tajani decree, and later it was converted into Law number 74 of 2025. It reshaped Italian citizenship by descent, limiting eligibility to 2 generations, introducing a handful of exceptions, and adding new declaration rules for minor children. But what truly shocked many applicants was that the new law was applied retroactively, meaning it reached back in time and stripped people of their right to Italian citizenship by descent that they were born with, that they were recognized as having based on the laws in effect at the time that they were born. Now, the Turin case quickly became a symbol of resistance, a judicial challenge that many hoped would bring this law before the Constitutional Court to determine whether that retroactive application is even constitutional at all. Now, here's the first twist. The state's attorney's office, which represents the Italian government, has filed a motion that could block the Constitutional Court from hearing the Turin case altogether. Their argument is procedural, but it could have serious consequences. They claim that the Turin case was filed on March 28th of 2025, according to court documents cited in the attorney's motion, one day before the decree entered into force on March 29th. Now, under Italian constitutional law, the Constitutional Court can only review a law if it's already in effect and directly applies to the case in question. So the state attorney's office argues that because the decree technically didn't yet exist at the time the case was filed, at least it wasn't in place yet, the Constitutional Court has nothing to review. Now, if that argument succeeds, and we don't know if it will, the Turin case could be declared inadmissible, meaning that the court would not even consider whether the new citizenship law violates the Constitution. Now, the good news is that there are other cases, such as those from Bologna, Milan, and Campobasso, that have also been referred to the Constitutional Court. So even if the Turin case is dismissed, we would likely still see the Constitutional Court get its chance to review the constitutionality of the new law and its retroactive application. But the dismissal of the Turin case could mean that it might be months before another suitable case reaches the court. And now for the second twist in this story. On October 14th, the Mellone law firm put out a memo that announced the president of the Italian Supreme Court had scheduled a United Sections hearing for January 13th of 2026 at 10 a.m. in the Great Hall of the Supreme Court in Rome. There are actually 2 cases involved, and both cases involve the descendants of Italian immigrants to the United States. These 2 cases were elevated to the United Sections because of their national importance, and according to attorney Marco Mellone, they could now take on a broader role in shaping how the new citizenship law is interpreted. Now, according to this official memo sent to me by Mr. Mellone, the Supreme Court's United Sections are set to examine 2 major legal questions that directly overlap with the recent law changes over the last year. The first is the minor issue, which is the legal question we were already expecting, as I've been reporting, for the Supreme Court to review. Now, the court is expected to clarify whether minors born outside of Italy automatically lose Italian citizenship when their parent naturalizes. This has been a major obstacle for many applicants, particularly over the past year. In both cases now before the Supreme Court, the lower court that originally heard these cases denied recognition based on Article 12 of Law 555. So this will be a direct test of that interpretation and a direct test of the minor issue. But now, according to Mellone's statement, the Supreme Court will also be examining the temporal scope or retroactive application of the new law. It seems the court will need to consider whether the new restrictions can legally be applied retroactively to rights that arose before the law was enacted. Quoting Mellone's memo from October 14th, the United Sections will say whether the new rules on citizenship, which sets up new important restrictions for the recognition of Italian citizenship by descent, shall be applicable in a retroactive way, for instance, to already born citizens. Now, I just want to point out that this is coming from the attorney involved in the case, and that the Supreme Court itself has not publicly stated that it will specifically rule on retroactivity. So next up, let's look at why all of this matters. According to Mellone, decisions of the United Sections carry an authority that is binding in practice on all lower courts across Italy. They form what is known as living law, or jurisprudence that shapes how courts, consulates, and even ministries apply legislation in real cases. This kind of intervention by the United Sections is extremely rare. The last major example was in 2022 when the Supreme Court ruled on the Brazilian Great Naturalization issue, a decision that was quickly adopted by nearly every court and consulate. So while the Supreme Court has not officially confirmed that it will address retroactivity, if that issue does arise in these January hearings, the outcome could have nationwide consequences. Now, at this point, we have two legal challenge tracks moving forward. First, we've got the Constitutional Court track. Now, through the Turin case and several other referrals pending in Bologna, Milan, and Campobasso, the Turin case may be delayed if the state's attorney's objection is accepted, but those other cases, which were filed after the law took effect, could still reach the Constitutional Court later this year or early next year. And secondly, we have the Supreme Court track, which may move faster. The January 13th hearing could result in a ruling that clarifies how Law 74 should be applied nationwide, including whether retroactive enforcement is permissible. So even if the Constitutional Court's review is postponed, the Supreme Court's decision may end up actually providing the first practical interpretation of the new citizenship rules. Now, what could this mean for applicants? Well, if the Supreme Court ultimately rules that Law 74 cannot be applied retroactively, that would likely protect people whose cases weren't already filed by the deadline, whose right to recognition existed before March 29th of 2025. So this January hearing may be the first opportunity for real clarity on whether the new rules can be applied to those with Italian ancestry born before the decree law went into effect. And as you've heard me say before, there are a number of attorneys who feel very strongly that the new law will only ultimately, after all of these legal challenges, be able to apply to those born after the law went into effect. So we really do have quite a double twist here. The Turin case may be delayed or may never be heard by the Constitutional Court, but the Supreme Court appears to be stepping in and could move even sooner, examining both the minor issue and, according to Mellone, possibly the retroactive scope of the new law as well. Now, we'll be watching both of these tracks closely, the Constitutional Court's next steps and the Supreme Court's January hearing. Now, if you'd like to understand how these new legal developments could affect your personal case, you can always book a consultation with me at ItalianDuel.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.